love that. How fun is that?
I am motivated. I am so motivated.
Exactly. Chris is motivated. He's giving us a big woo. I'm going to take that. So, hey, everybody, how are you?
Nice.
This is Rob Sutter and Eric Johnson here for Serverless at reInvent Volume 3. With me? There it is. Thanks, Rob. I appreciate that.
Gotcha.
And we're going to be talking about some stuff. Rob, how's your day going? How are you enjoying reInvent?
My day is going fantastically. I am enjoying reInvent, chatting with some heroes in a couple places, chatting with some customers in a couple other places. That's my favorite part. And it's the thing I miss the most is just like the hallway track and listening to how people build. So thankfully that we've been able to sort of replicate that a little bit. But if you haven't talked to me and you want to talk to me, please find a way to talk to me because here's a good one.
Yeah, I would encourage you to reach out to us on Twitter. Our handles are right there on our names. Reach out to us. The whole team is there and ready to help. And so really excited to be here. I miss that too. I'm a face-to-face person. Hey, I want to show you this? I've got my 2016 reInvent t-shirt on and my 2016 hoodie. I'm pretty proud of that. Is that the right one? Yeah, there it is. So this is
it's a long time to keep a t-shirt, buddy.
It is. Yeah, that's true. I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm having some technical difficulties with my audio, so I'm going to give it to you for a second. I'll be right back.
What'd you say?
I said
I'm having some technical difficulties with your audio.
Well played.
Okay. All right. While you do that, let me see if my clicker works. No, it doesn't. Hey, there we go. We'll do this instead. Okay. So as Eric was saying, this is session 3 of serverless live streams for reInvent. This is our 3rd one this week. Let me get rid of, I think that got caught. We're doing 6 of these in total. So 2 will be next week on Tuesday and Thursday. And then 1 the final week on the 16th. Hey, he's back. Look, now I'm on top.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
I've been promoted. In the meantime, if you want to catch other videos, hey, buddy, things that we've done, you can check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/serverlessland. Or, of course, we have a lot of episodes here on Twitch under the AWS channel. Let's see. What do we? That's me, and that's you. So
that's us. Yep.
I'm the good-looking one. That's me on the right. We are both senior developer advocates at AWS Serverless, and that's a little bit about you. Why don't you tell the viewers about you just in case they don't know?
So if you don't know who I am, again, my name is Eric Johnson. You can find me at EDJGeek on Twitter. You can also find me on email at ericdj@amazon.com. So reach out to us if you need it. I love to answer questions. We try to answer everything we can. If I don't know, which, Rob, this can shock you, I don't know everything about serverless. I try to, but I don't. But if I don't know, I know the people who know. So we try to get answers as we can. I've been a senior developer here at AWS for 2 years. I am a father of 5. That's not a typo. It's a crazy house. In fact, the problem with my sound was one of my kids was jumping onto their school here at home, and it grabbed my AirPods. So there you go. It's like, whoa! All of a sudden, I was talking to
8th grade earth science.
I was talking to my child's teacher instead of you, so that went a little weird. And then I am a 2-pizza expert. And I'm a musician-ish. I'm a drummer. So, but before this, I've been an AWS evangelist. I've been a senior software architect I've been doing development since 1995. So, there you go.
Right on.
That's me. Tell them about you.
About me, a little bit about me. Also, senior developer advocate. I don't have the slick picture, so you just got to check out this picture of me and my best friend there. I love Go. So most of my code examples that you'll see from me are Go. I also like functional programming, which those two don't really overlap much. My Twitter is there on the slide along with my email. I also have my first professional programming job that I got paid for in 1995. It was in Visual Basic.
I didn't get
paid. You didn't get paid? Oh, it's not a job then.
Okay. So 2016.
Yeah. But more importantly, so today we want to talk about some of the new stuff you've seen, not necessarily at reInvent, but we are going to bring some reInvent stuff in, but in the lead up as well. And
that's right. Pre-invent and reInvent. Yeah.
Pre-invent and reInvent. And what does that mean for building applications? And in particular, we're going to go a little deeper today. we're going to look at event-driven architectures, which I'm a huge fan of. You know that I will not stop talking about three things: Go, Eventbridge, and step functions. So lucky for you all, this stream ends and I have to stop talking about them. We're going to do this all within the concept of App 2025, which was a series that we did earlier this year that just sort of envisions what are the emerging patterns and how do we expect people to build 5 years from now. And that, you see, you've got a QR code here on the slide. You've got a link here on the slide that'll take you to that repo if you're interested in seeing that, if you're not familiar with it. But we can also, I'll give you a brief overview of that on the next slide. But real quick, I want to hit these 5 things that we're going to talk about today. Improvements to Eventbridge for archiving and replaying events. Synchronous express workflows for step functions, which you and I were talking about right before the stream started. That is,
That's right.
You're not going to believe
Epic.
what we show you, so we're going to show you live.
Epic.
It's incredible how performant that is. Larger state payloads in step functions, increased batch sizes in SQS, and what that enables, and per millisecond billing. And you'll see all this stuff really interacts well together. It's not just a single release. It's with all of these enabled, how much different is your development and your application experience from what it would have been in like March when we got started, right?
Yep.
So anything you want to add there, buddy, or you want to?
Well, I think it's interesting, and I think you're already going to cover it, but I'm going to throw my 2 cents in here. When we talk about serverless, serverless, when you go way back to serverless, when serverless was Lambda, right? I mean, that's what it was when it first started. Lambda, API gateway, and this idea of being able to run your compute in ephemeral, real quick, invoke, bill for invoke only type processes. But serverless has become a lot more, and it changes the way we approach development. And obviously that's what you're going to be touching on. But serverless is more than just being able to run compute on a Lambda that I don't have to manage. I don't have to do any management. It's also being able to utilize these services and offloading the effort that often we had to handle in code. We often, our error handling, our polling, and our different things like that. We often had to offload that, and now we often had to handle that in our code, and now we offload that to these services when we talk about DLQs, and we talk about retry policies, we talk about error handling, different things like that. So it changes the way we handle that, and you're able to use reliable services rather than having to roll a lot of that into your code. And I talk about that a lot in the fact that the most brittle part of an application that I build, this may not be the same for you, because you got paid in 1995. I did not. The most brittle part of an application that I build is my code, because that's where I'm iterating, constantly working on. So when I can roll that off and use the services built in to handle persistent storage, to handle retries, it's a win. So and it's a game changer.
Well, code is like anything you build, right? It's not done. There's maintenance associated with it. So whether you think about it as like gardening or building maintenance or whatever, when you write your code, there becomes an ongoing cost. And that's why you'll hear me say it over and over, I'm ruthless about eliminating code for a couple reasons. That's one of them. Anytime you write code, you're mortgaging your future ability to create value against the cost of maintaining what you're creating right then. The second reason is, and we talk, this whole thing we'll be talking about eliminating code, but it really helps you dial in as a company, as a business unit, what is our core competency? What is our value?
Right.
Because if you get to sort of this low code nirvana, then every line of code you write is a competitive advantage. It's what distinguishes you from your competitors. Your customers don't come to you because you store data in DynamoDB more effectively than your competitor, right? So don't write code for that. It allows you to focus more and more on the customer experience and those differentiating factors. So anytime you see something that your competitors are also doing, that's probably a good indicator that you should look to get rid of that code through a service integration. Well, in AWS, we say that a lot. We say, helping remove undifferentiated heavy lifting, the things that don't separate you. So, yeah, very much so. Yeah. All right. Yeah. As a techie thought right here, code is a liability. It really is. Like I said, you've got to put it's a future cost that you're assuming anytime you write it. So if it doesn't create a distinct competitive advantage, you shouldn't write that code. I feel like we've hit on that enough, though. Yeah. Let's talk about App 2025 real quick.
I think so. Hey, I'm going to answer this question real quick. We had a question come in from Mark Raven on YouTube. Is HTTP, this is a little off topic, but I'm going to answer it real quick. Is HTTP API custom Lambda authorizer for SAM supported, or when can it be? Yeah, you can do the authorizers. Most of them in SAM. I've got some examples on sessions with SAM, which I'm going to throw, or I'm going to ask James if he'd throw a link in there. And we can refer that. And if not, Mark, reach out to me after the show, and we can talk through that. So glad to help you out with that.
All right. Let's see. You know what I want to do? Give me just a second. I want to see. I know somebody asked about an ongoing chat, and James answered him and said that there's a Discord.
Yep.
I was seeing if I could find that invite real quick. It might mess up a bunch of stuff. So if y'all get to see my Discord, it's going to be great. There's like 97 channels down the left about like things that I don't use. But this is some community heroes, some serverless heroes. A couple people created this. I've got, let me see. I think, invite people. I will drop this here in the chat. This expires in 1 day, which is the default because I don't want to take any more time. So get in there now. And there's a hallway track and a serverless track. And then that's a good place to talk to people about their experiences. There's a ton of heroes in there. So it's a really like engaged conversation going in. I really recommend anybody watching get in there and see what's happening. So
awesome. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, you bet. In fact, I'll pop that up on the screen here. Look at that. There you go. If for some reason, well, I guess if you're
type that out later, really quick. Type that out.
Well, if you're seeing this later and you don't see the chat, you got 1 day to get in there. So get in there.
Sounds good.
All right. Now, App 2025. Little bit about it. Again, the URL is there. You can go see, but it's an event-driven application. And it really comes down to this loop of as you move from left to right through time, events go onto the bus, trigger workflows complete, and put completion events back onto the bus. And all of these events are business, they're domain events, right? Customer sign up, customer login failure, order attempt, add item to cart. Whatever you're working in, there are these domain events that go on there. And so each of these workflows, step function workflows, are domain business processes. And the advantage of building this way is this is how things actually happen out in the real world, right? Yeah. Customer enters store, selects an item, puts it into their cart. That's an event. If you have an attentive salesperson, you can pick them up and say, hey, look, I noticed you added a screwdriver. Maybe you also would like me to lead you to our screw section. Right. And so then that sort of gives you an idea of what that business process workflow would look like from a technical perspective.
I love how dramatic you did that.
Well,
if you have a screwdriver.
I'm very
it's very intense. That's good. I didn't mean to break your flow. Go ahead.
No, it's great, man. It's great. I don't work from a script, so it's
what?
Yeah, I know. But so you've got like as you move through time, these events coming horizontally and these processes coming vertically. And App 2025 is an implementation of that with code that uses all of these different components. And then you get into like SNS and SQS for resilience and buffering and like broad fan out and all of this. Storing the data with service integrations we talked about. You can put objects directly into S3 buckets. You can put items and get items directly from DynamoDB without doing code. Because that's not your competitive advantage, right? You're not going to create some sort of library that retrieves data faster from DynamoDB than your competitors. It's commoditized.
Right.
And then finally, I love the fact that by using all of this and putting all of those events into S3 buckets, you can still query all of that serverlessly using Amazon Athena, right? And yes, your needs might grow beyond this in a real world application. You might want to bring in Redshift for data warehousing and all of this, right? You might have very specific reasons to not do things serverlessly, but it's just the idea of how you can have this complete end-to-end serverless event-driven architecture. And you can have it today, right? It's how we expect people will build years from now, but you can have it today. So with all that said, how do these changes that we've launched impact our architecture when you're building next generation serverless applications? So archival and replaying of events on Eventbridge. This was a pre-event announcement. Again, all of these, we're going to put the blog post up. We're going to put the link there for you. Archiving and replaying events allows you to take sections of events as you were moving through time, like a slice of time, and replay that on your event bus. And you want to do this in cases like we have here to test code fixes, right? You caught a bug, something went wrong. You can use that slice of time to ensure that you get the expected result with all of the other things going on. You can use it to test new features to compare that the outcome is expected compared to what you got before. And my favorite, you can use it to hydrate pre-production environments. So you can start from a state of no items, no orders, no customers, and you can hydrate in inventory and customer signups and items being added to carts, using filtering, using other rules so that you get a pre-production environment that you can use to run your code against.
Yeah, and there's some really interesting things built into replay. And this is James's blog that you've got linked here, right? Yeah, this is a great blog written by, and he's in the chat channel, James Beswick, Mr. Blog himself. Hey, James. But it's really interesting on how all the examples you talked about and how the kind of technology is built in. If I'm running a mall and I can set up hey, here's my vault. I want to create a vault. It can be encrypted. Write everything. I can filter what goes into that vault. I can say, hey, these are the only things that I will ever care to replay. And you may say, hey, I want everything. I want to filter it. And then Amazon Eventbridge is going to manage that filter for you for that vault. When you go to replay it, it's really slick. Amazon Eventbridge will add a tag to it, a parameter that says, hey, this is a replay. That's not the exact name of the parameter. I can't recall the exact name of the I think it's replay name. And then you name it, hey, this is replay. And it tells the vault to ignore that. So we don't create a circular, oh my gosh, I've got circular things going on here. But you can, and then you can also filter on that in your other rules to say, hey, even if we replay, ignore that. So lots of flexibility, lots of power with this. Very cool.
Yeah. It's a replay name attribute is what you're looking for.
Replay name. That's what I said. I said replay name. Yeah. From memory, baby. 50 years old. I got
Amazing.
two of my kids' names.
Yeah. I can't even remember what we were talking about because I went to look that up. So I've got nothing. That's why we have the slides here. That's why we have the slides. I'm like a mouse.
It's the A team here on Serverless at reInvent.
Yeah. Just don't ask me to remember anything that isn't written down.
18.
Yeah. No, but it's really powerful. Like you said, you choose what to archive. So you can, like security teams can use this to archive only threat events so that they can look at what they might have missed or like they can replay attacks as training material. You can replay certain sections as indicators before brownouts or blackouts if you have downtime to look at your resilience and your availability to run like game days against those.
Yep.
And make sure that what you're doing is actually working. Gives you some really robust capabilities. So this is sort of core to what App 2025 is, right? It's less a thing to build into your application and more a thing to operate and test your application with as you go forward. So if you haven't looked into this, really recommend using this, especially for those pre-production environments and the use cases we talked about.
Yeah, it's a backbone of the application, and you really have to look at it that way as, this is my nerve center, this is my communication, this is where, rather than my events try to talk, or my service try to talk directly to each other. And I think I'm just repeating you now, but I agree with you. It's a strong service for just saying, okay, this is going to be the center, and then let's use it to bust things around.
Yeah, I want to pop a question up here, and it's been answered. I'm new to Eventbridge. Need to know how several consumers use the same event in Eventbridge. Is it possible for all consumers to use the same message simultaneously, or should one wait until another consumer finishes consuming the message and put it back on the bus? So an individual consumer won't know about other consumers, or we call these rules and targets, right? So you have an event bus that events go on to, and a rule matches events based on detail type, source, other fields. And it sends it to a target. So in this case, the target is a consumer that you're asking about here. One target won't know about another target. And this is a feature. This is really helpful in building event-driven applications because each of these processes is finishing independently. It's executing completely independently. So it's, of course, nothing is simultaneous, because even if you do like sequential operations, right, there's going to be a little time difference, but functionally we're talking sort of nanoseconds here, right? Like they are simultaneous. And you shouldn't couple them that way. You shouldn't think of them as coupled, because these are domain processes and domain events. So anytime you have a customer sign up, the customer team might want to subscribe to that event and run some sort of fraud detection workflow, right? To ensure that they're not using a fraudulent payment method. And that may be all you have today. But 6 months from now, you get some new compliance requirement where you also have to do background checks, or you have a sales requirement where you want to see if they've signed up before. And you can capture that event with a new target and a new rule and process it completely independently without changing your existing application. So new consumers, new targets don't impact your existing code. And it's a great way for larger teams to build, because you don't have to you don't have to coordinate or orchestrate those movements together. You're only concerned with your business team's area of responsibility on the bus. So thanks for that question. It's a really good question. Let me see. There's some other questions in here I want to get before we move off of this. Got it. Thanks. Hi, Ant. Good to see you. Can you point me to a blog post for reference how it's done if there is one? Yeah, we dropped a reference. That's Pargav Chowdhury. This link that you see here on the screen is the blog post on event archival and replay. If you do s12d.com/app2025, which was a link from earlier in the stream, you'll see it, but just app2025. That'll take you to the repo, which has a whole section and episode on Eventbridge as the backbone of your serverless application. Whoa!
Yeah, I just posted a bit. We had a question in the YouTube channel on our layers supported in the new container image support for Lambda functions. And the quick answer is no, they're not, because the intent is that all your dependencies would be inside the image. However, if you have a layer that you're using or extension that you're using and you need access to that, Julian Wood, our wonderful DA from Over the Pond, I like how I use that. I don't use Over the Pond very often, but there it is. From Over the Pond, I wrote an excellent blog on how to pull those in, and so I just posted a link to that blog. So there you go.
Cool. Yeah, he did some great work, and it's really fascinating. Some other time we should talk about ordering of layers in the container images and how you can optimize for what's changing the most so that you get faster redeploys, better caching, and all of this. Fascinating topic, but not one we're getting into today, unless there's time at the end. So, all right. Let's see. So, Synchronous Express workflows.
I like this one.
Wow. Okay. So like App 2025, when we built it, we sort of hand waved over how you get things from the client into the backend and vice versa. Because the reality is, in a purely asynchronous system, that's challenging, right? And you have WebSockets and you have things that enable this, GraphQL subscriptions and all of this, but it's sort of would have pulled us away from what we were trying to demonstrate, which was this backend business processing system. With the introduction of Synchronous Express workflows, oh my gosh, y'all.
Yeah.
What this means is that you have an HTTP API, which is one of the API gateway types, that synchronously invokes a step functions express workflow. Couple things to unpack there. Remember, you've got this 30-second timeout on API gateway. So you're looking at a user makes a request and waits synchronously for a response. Express workflows can run up to 5 minutes, so you're going to want to make sure that it completes under 30 seconds, right?
Someone said, I got to interrupt you. Well, I'll just put it up here. It says, I feel like Ant posted this. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Every once in a while, I send him a private chat that said, smile, Rob.
Yeah. It's really hard for me to gin up enthusiasm talking about Eventbridge and step functions, which are like literally my favorite two things to talk about.
So here's the problem. I'm going to break it down right now.
I am caffeinated.
Rob, show him what you're drinking, Rob.
Eric doesn't care for my beverage of choice, but
that's not going to do it.
Watermelon,
that's not going to do it.
Or pastèque.
That's right.
LaCroix.
I have my Pepper here. Yeah, exactly. So,
But back to the Express workflows, which I'm super excited about. Why does this matter, right? Why should you do this? I am going to posit something right now that a lot of you are going to say that's crazy or wrong, and I am not, and I will prove it to you. From now on, if you are using an API gateway to invoke a Lambda function or something else, and you're using HTTP APIs, you should wrap that in a Synchronous Express workflow call. Why?
I don't know.
Why?
I'm going to
let me talk. Hold on here.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Skepticism because it's healthy. It's healthy.
Actually, it's not as much, and I'll tell why. You go first.
Let me tell you the benefits first.
Okay.
The benefits are there on the slides, right? So it helps with the migration to event-driven architectures. The simplest case, you get an API request. Instead of invoking a Lambda function that does something, you in parallel place that event onto the bus because it's a domain event, right? So you place that onto an Eventbridge event bus, and at the same time, invoke the same Lambda function, right? So this is an extension of your code that's doing two things at once now. Very fast action. Reducing lines of code, and this is a big one. This is one of the big ones we talked about earlier. The error handling that's built into step functions workflows with retries, backoffs, all of stuff. These are solved problems, right? So if you're implementing exponential backoff in your code, that's a feature you didn't create for your customers, right? This is just something you can configure, and it's there.
Right out of the box.
Right out of the box. And this last one, lift error handling out of functions. My computer science professors would be so mad at me if they saw what my functions look like today, because my functions are 100% happy path.
See,
100% all the time. Happy path. If error, return error, get out, right? I use Go. So it's if error is not equal to nil, return it, move on with your life. Like, don't even consider how to handle it, what to do with it. Don't think about it. Now, obviously, there are other cases and other ways of doing things, but I'm just saying this is how I do it.
I'm going to talk for a minute. First of all, I'll tell you,
because I've been saying a lot.
Yeah, first of all, I'm going to tell you straight up, my music teachers could care less what the code looks like in my anywhere. So I went that route. That seems to help. Number two, so Rob and I had this discussion. Rob is the 1%. Rob and I had this discussion several months ago when there was no Synchronous Express workflow. In fact, we might have had this. No, there was Express workflow, but not Synchronous. And I pushed back on that. I push back on that because it's like, well, and man, I see the value of step functions, I really do. But if it was an asynchronous flow, that doesn't always apply. You can't always do it. As much as we tell you, as often as you can go asynchronous, because and we do a whole nother thing on that. But there are times when you need synchronous. But Rob, I have to tell you, with the release of the Synchronous Express workflows, I'm slowly walking to your camp. I do think this is, especially now, if I'm just simply doing, here's where I'm at. If I'm doing a simple hello world API that just simply responds with hello world, I'm probably not going to wrap it in a Synchronous Express workflow because the Lambda function is doing all the work, and I think you're adding a tad bit of complexity to make that happen. But if I'm doing any kind of orchestrating, any kind of do this and this, do this, then this, do this after this, or do this or this based on how we're doing, then I absolutely agree with you. And so I think this opens again an entire doorway to being able to orchestrate very quickly synchronous workflows. And so I'm going to give you that, and I'm going to tell you that I'm 72.32% with you. I did the math last night. I counted. I got to 2% and I went to bed. So there you go.
That's fair. I will tell you, like, I've had a little bit of internal conflict about this myself because one of the major benefits is in conflict with one of my major principles, right? And so one of the principles of software development, Yagni, right? You aren't going to need it. So don't build it until you need it.
Right. And that goes to the question Cooper Top just said exactly what I said. I really think that is you always have to look at applications in a way complexity of management versus some of these other things. I went blank. Complexity of management versus other stuff. Complexity versus what you're getting out of it, right? And if I'm adding it just for the sake of adding it, but I don't really need it, then yeah, I disagree with that. But here we go.
See, there's a fork, right?
The big picture. I know where you're going with this. So
there's a non-zero possibility that you're going to need to add some sort of additional feature behind that API call in the future. It's non-zero. That's not enough on its own to justify wrapping it, right? Because you may not need that. So you aren't going to need it. Comes in there. You may not need that. But it's a benefit that you get. It's a non-zero benefit that accrues. The real benefit, the real reason why I suggest you do this out of the gate on every function goes back to that error handling and retries. Because distributed systems are operating in a degraded state at all times, right?
Yeah.
You're building a distributed system when you're building an event-driven system, and it is going to be degraded. So ultimately, you're going to see failures. And when you see those failures, the robust error handling that's there in the step functions workflows for you is a huge win over trying to write that into your function yourself. So if you're putting things into production, then I posit you absolutely need this, right?
Why would you build if you're not going to production? It's a whole nother conversation. Yeah, you go ahead.
Hobby, theory, science.
Okay,
research.
all right, okay, yeah.
Arguably, there's a lot of reasons, but if you are building something that's going into production, I suggest you do this. Okay. And now, I'm surprised that we haven't seen the objection that I expected in the chat.
Do you want me to say it? What's that? No, go ahead.
No. I want to let me jump to some code here.
My objection is generally complexity, but I refer, and I know you're already doing this, but I do understand when you're evaluating this. I want to say this, and I'm actually, this is for your side, not mine, or there aren't really sides here. There are no sides.
That's right.
When you're evaluating complexity versus functionality, and what you get out of that. I think to Rob's point is a lot of times we just say, well, complexity, I'm just kidding. It's going to route to the function and go back. But you have to look at it's that total picture of the error handling of the, I don't think the ability to add something later is good enough, but I think the error handling is. If I want to add something later, then I'll roll that in. But I do like the error handling to retry different things like that. So
it's the net complexity, right?
Yeah.
It's not.
Yes.
It's the net complexity of your system is reduced by doing this, which can be counterintuitive. So it's a good point to bring up.
Yeah.
It is fast. Yeah. What a timely comment here. Express workflows are lightning fast. So I'm glad that you're having that experience as well. Let me show you what we're looking at here. These are two artillery files. And if we diff them, you'll see the only difference is the API gateway endpoints, right? So we're going to run the same two. We probably won't run them. I'll just show you the results. Maybe I'll kick it off so you can see that it's true. Maybe that'll mess up my stream. Who knows?
Yeah.
But we ran a series. We warmed it up to 30 transactions per second, and just for a minute. So we threw close to a couple thousand transactions at these to get some sort of idea of what the variance was. We used the exact same code. So it's a simple Lambda function to minimize the complexity there. Exact same code, deployed the exact same runtime settings, everything, exact same templates. The only difference is in the Lambda only, our API definition, which I can show you here, invokes our function directly by ARN.
Yeah. Now, if you're not familiar with artillery, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Artillery is, it's a load tester. And Rob's running it from his machine, but there's also serverless artillery that you can spin up Lambda functions to just hammer away. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just
man, it's good.
Know what that was. Yeah.
It's good. So yeah, I'll show you that. And then in this one, you see the difference is we've got this step function start sync execution. And then when you go back and look at our this here, we have a simple state machine that I can visualize for you. That invokes
look at you.
That's all it is. That's all it is, right? So it's single step workflow, invokes that Lambda function. Now here, I'm gonna throw something at you. What do you think is going to be faster? invoking API gateway to step functions to Lambda, or API gateway to Lambda in a synchronous loop and return?
I'm not going to say because I was surprised when you told me this morning. So
Yeah.
I already know. So I would, yeah, okay. So Coppertop says Lambda directly.
Coppertop says Lambda directly. I was setting this demo up to say, but despite having this impact, it's still worth it because. And then I ran the numbers.
Yeah.
And on the right, we have the Lambda. On the left is the Lambda only numbers. On the right is the synchronous workflow numbers. And you see there's a little bit of variance there, but look at the P95 and P99 on those.
That's crazy. Your print is just a bit small, so I'm squinting.
Maybe I can blow it up a little bit. 1.1 milliseconds difference at the 95th percentile.
Crazy. That's crazy.
By adding in, and of course, this is at that point, it's less than 0.1% in terms of end user experience. But even down at your minimums and your medians are real close, right?
Yeah.
So I was really shocked to see this, and in a lot of scenarios, synchronous workflows were beating the concurrent invocations to Lambda workflows only. So this was fascinating for me. I don't exactly know why this is happening. I assume it's got something to do with like affiliation within the AZ and where this is actually occurring.
It's the same magic as the strong as the S3 stuff. I mean, it's that same magic. It's like, whoa, Hey, we had a question. What is this lovely step functions visualizer in VS Code? You want to show them?
Yeah. I will. This is the AWS toolkit for Visual Studio Code. We introduced this, like back in March, we introduced this as a feature, I believe. There is a blog on this, but really all you have to do is add the AWS toolkit as an extension. Let me see where my extensions are here. The AWS toolkit for Visual Studio Code. And then when you define a state machine, you define it as .asl, the Amazon States Language, .json. And it does auto completion, right? If we wanted to add another state in here, we can, do fail state, map state, parallel state, all of these things. So it's not just the visualization. There's a lot of additional functionality that gets added in here. This is the same visualization that you would see if you took it into the console. And then at the same time, you can also, where are we? This is Ohio. So you could kick off state machine invocations here, download your definition, edit it, all this stuff, right? So there's a lot in here. There's an episode specifically on this on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/serverlessland. So really recommend checking that out. But it's a great tool that the step functions team built. They've been really churning out a bunch of good stuff this year.
In fact, Rob has an entire playlist dedicated to step functions. Lots of folks learning from that playlist. Rob, we had a question on here: is why were you shocked? Why do you expect a performance diff, and what did you expect? I'll answer that real quick. I was a little shocked because so when you set this up, so you're thinking about services, thinking about hops, right? So if I make a request, it's going to go to step functions. Step functions is then kind of called Lambda. We've got an extra hop in there. Versus if I'm going directly HTTP API to Lambda. That's a removal of a hop, so it's just a little bit more of network moving around, a little more processing, and so that kind of shows you the speed of which things are connecting behind the scenes and how fast they're hitting. I was surprised that there was very little to zero latency added in these hops, because as developers, we have to, when you're programming, when you're thinking about your client getting to your code, you want that code as close to the client as you can get it, right? You don't want to do a bunch of hops. That's why we do things like CDN, so we can push that code close to the client. So same kind of same theory here. Rob, you have anything to add to that? Did I cover it? Okay.
The only thing I would add is exact same reasoning. I just expected that 3 would be greater than 2, right? But it goes back to, in any distributed system, the weakest part is the network. The slowest part is the network. And you look at, when you see the L1 cache, L2 cache, L3 cache, memory, disk, and then network is the distance from me to Eric, and he's in Colorado and I'm in Connecticut, right? It's so much of a difference. that essentially the network inside the AWS AZ, if you look at instances now, we're provisioning instances where you can get like 400 gigabit per second traffic on them. Like it's lightning fast. They're going to have affinity to be closer to one another. Just everything that's happening in there is so minuscule compared to the packet round trip from my machine to the AWS data center. So, it makes sense now that I thought about it. Yeah. Good call out from Jeremy here. Hi, Jeremy. And then I want to move off of this because we do still have some other topics to cover. But yeah, Sync Express workflows are function composition, right? You take functions, literally, and compose them into higher order functions that work together. With the trade-off, yeah, you do have to learn it. It can be more intimidating than it is, which is why we created that series. And again, why the Step Functions team has done so much work in making that developer experience improved this year. And I think you see it right here on the slide.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to PowerPoint, which everybody loves more than code, right?
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint. Larger state payload.
I'm gonna jump real quick. I'm gonna interrupt you. Hey, Top, you asked a question, and I'm not gonna answer this right now because this is another 2 or 3 hour conversation. But we're talking about this thing with code. But hit me after the channel. I'm glad to discuss this on what we talk about when we push. It's config versus code, right? And it's pushing that complexity out of code and configuration. And glad to talk about that more. But I think this is a good question, and maybe we can center on it in another one of these shows. So.
Yeah, it is. Once you start talking declarative versus imperative, then
that's right.
People are going to be in here talking about CDK versus cloud formation, and we're going to get derailed. But it's an excellent question. So let's see. Hey, okay, larger state payloads. This is a simple one, but it's an extremely important one. Again, blog link is here, QR code. What this did was it gave you 256 kilobyte payloads for step functions for your state. And a step function's execution is just essentially it starts with a JSON object, and it's a series of functions that are applied to that JSON object. And previously, the limit was 64 kilobytes. Sorry. And so we would say, don't put objects in your state. Put pointers to objects in your state. Put DynamoDB item identifiers. Put S3 object prefixes. But load them in your individual functions. And what larger state payloads allows you to do is actually pull some of that data into your state, especially for larger like iterations on a map state, where you don't have to make as many calls out to the service, so long as you stay under that 256 kilobytes. And it also aligns with payload size for other services like Amazon SQS, Amazon SNS, and Amazon Eventbridge, so that you can have a single object moving through each of these calls without having to do things like break it up, write it out, retrieve it, reassemble it. So this was a big deal. Kind of one of these subtle things that you might not notice if you weren't deep into step functions, but it really helps us a lot, especially with express workflows, where you may want to do all that manipulation as quickly as possible and get an answer back to somebody. And so you don't want that added latency of those calls. All right.
All right.
Okay. Next. Increased batch size. This one, I'm going to have a lot to say about. So I want to answer a question that I saw come up here.
Are you hitting this one? Does that mean there's no need for queuing service after the API?
Different problem. That's solving a different problem. So now step functions express workflows, I believe you can have 1 million invocations per state machine open at once. So again, it gets back to this it depends answer. But the queuing is there for if you get buffered.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the queue. I'm going to jump in real quick. I think the queuing comes in. So I'm running these. The queuing comes in if I need to protect downstream as well. Right. I need to slow that down a little bit. That really comes in is do I need to queue this? Do I need to watch for buffering? Do I need to watch that downstream? So you can add that in between if needed. You can handle a lot of invokes at a time, and I don't know. I think you're right on the numbers, but so yeah, it's kind of an and or if situation on that, depending on your workload and what's downstream and how fast things can respond.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. And if you go back to the App 2025 series, one of the later episodes is building with SNS and SQS for resilience. And it's another part of productionizing your application, where we talk simply about Eventbridge to a workflow, and those are the components, but you connect them with SNS and SQS in the middle to, again, it's just all about that resilience and survivability of events. So no, it doesn't eliminate the need, especially at large scales, and for the reasons that Eric pointed out.
Yeah. Jeremy pointed out, he said it wouldn't apply to express workflows. You probably wouldn't put it between there. You probably put it after. Like if I'm going to dump some work into a queue from the express workflow, kind of fire and forget type ideas. So as well.
Yeah. I just want to highlight the question that I saw you answered already, but can you show us how Lambda functions packaged as container images work? And there was a demo of this. You dropped the link for it.
I did.
Let me see. I'll show this. So there's a demo of this. This gets talked about a lot. Julian's blog post that we referenced earlier is an excellent example on layers and extensions, because it takes it a little bit deeper into how those are built. So if anybody has that same question, I just wanted to get that up for them. So increased batch size. You want to talk about this? You want me to keep talking? I love to talk.
No, you go ahead. Yeah, this is going to be your specialty. You're doing great. You're doing great.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks.
I like the haircut.
Positivity on the first week of reInvent.
Right.
And I meant to touch it up for the stream, but life happens. So increased batch size, again, link here and the QR code. You can define batch windows for SQS now up to 5 minutes. And along with that, you can define batch sizes of up to 10,000 records per batch when you're doing batch operations with SQS. Previously, this was 10 items. And so this is a really interesting one when you consider cases of, it's a really big.
Yeah, it's like, we're at 10. Let's go 10,000.
It's 1,000 times bigger. But it comments when this came out were, it didn't make sense for me to process smaller batches with faster Lambda functions, because I was still being billed up to 100 milliseconds. And that's going to be the next point that we talk about, which is why these two are so closely related. When that happened, we went back and asked those customers, are you now with millisecond billing more inclined to do smaller batches, or are you more inclined to take the bigger batches for longer running processes? And ultimately the answer that we got, as with everything in distributed systems, is it depends, right? Yeah. So for ones where the response, where they needed to be processed more quickly, they intended to take advantage of the millisecond billing. And that's kind of a lesson there for you. If you have something that is, it's okay to be asynchronous and have retries, but you don't want it taking longer, then use the smaller batches or use individual messages. If you're okay with the larger, like bisecting those batches when you get failures or bad messages that you need to weed out, that can take longer, obviously with 10,000, because it's like log base 2 over however many you have in your batch that you need to split and eliminate to get the bad messages out or send to a dead letter queue. So it really depends on how you want to build. I would also think about this with setup time. What's your setup time to be able to process a batch? If it's very low, if you're using a very low latency language, like my favorites, then I would take smaller batches. If it's larger and you have more work to do for whatever reason, then you may take advantage of those bigger batches. But it is an important announcement. It is an important feature. As again, Serverless Hero Jeremy Daly here says, it's quite magical. The throttling controls are there, and again, the priority queue patterns where you can take small important batches and handle them ahead of larger, lower priority batches. We haven't even talked about the window size. Right, the batch window size and all the things you can do with that as well. But again, the ability to stretch that window up to 5 minutes really enables you to be a lot more flexible with how you consume records off of, or messages out of that queue.
So something I would throw in there, and kind of on a higher level, is, and I've talked to developers who you just take the defaults. We just take the defaults of whatever is set in there, just bare minimum. we talk, and I can go into a whole talk about more knobs and levers, less knobs and levers, things like that. But when you have knobs and levers on a service, changing batch window, changing batch size, changing pull frequency, things like that, it's really worth it to evaluate it against your application, because like Rob said, it depends. It's really important to understand your application to make one. It's always better to have things done quicker, right? To get those done quicker, but two, save money. And so evaluate the knobs and levers, looking at against your application. Don't just take the defaults. And I've seen folks do that, and and sometimes the defaults will work fine, but look at the knobs and levers, understand the service, reach out to us if you need help.
That's right. Per millisecond billing, we hit on this in terms of, well, let's bring this question up too, because we sort of hit on it a little bit. But if Lambda is billing by millisecond now, why bother batching? Downstream buffering. And some services, some use cases you just have to. Like, some people are getting millions of records a second coming through. If you've got IoT data, sensor data, stuff like that coming in, it can be overwhelming. And really, in a lot of cases, the only way to process it is a batch. This is one of the things.
Yeah. Think of also just the Lambda structure itself. Here's my even here's the little bit of init time. Here's my processing, and then the end. If I can process 10 in that, I'm gaining this. I'm not reinitializing every time. I can't talk today. Reinitializing every time. So if I can process 10 or 100 or 10,000 at a time, I may say, rather than one per. A 1-to-1 is often going to take just a little longer than 1 to 10,000. So 10,000 one time or 10,000 time.
And in some cases, the batch is the business unit of compute, right? Some cases you are concerned with all of the items together, and you're doing some sort of calculation over them, right? An aggregation or math or what have you. And there is no concept of doing something to one item. So you need to take all available records for this given point in time. So there's just a lot of use cases there. If for you have lower numbers of items coming in and they all need to be independently handled, taking them as single items is fine. Like, you can get item, you can batch get item, do it according to your use case.
This is another good one, Jeremy Daly. This is good. Hey, I don't want to make you nervous, Rob, but Rebecca is in the room.
I know, I saw that earlier.
And
then you cut me off. So, hi,
So,
Rebecca.
So, all right. What's next?
Well, we're on per millisecond billing. With Lambda.
All right. Still on. Okay.
And I really want to talk about this because it speaks to what we started with, right? Okay. As you reduce the scope of your code to only the competitive advantage that you're providing, only your USP, right? That's where this becomes such a big deal, because we talked about all that you should do inside your function is what you do better than your competitors. And if you can squeeze that down under 100 milliseconds.
Sorry, you go. You do you, Rob. I'm doing this.
If you squeeze it down under 100 milliseconds, you should, right?
Yeah.
And now it makes sense both financially and from a customer experience perspective, because you're paying at a more fine-grained level for what you're doing, but you're also returning that response to your user. It's important. You still don't want to don't optimize early, right? Like, premature optimization will kill you. But if you were already at a point where you can make some changes that create customer value, but they weren't financially viable, they just became financially viable. And I think you'll see more and more Lambda functions begin to be written in this mode, which is interesting because a lot of people say, I want a Lambda function that can run for an hour. I want a Lambda function that can run for a day. Right, and we can have that conversation another time. I think we'll actually see the median Lambda function execution time shift shorter in light of this feature being released. Because to a large extent, outcomes mirror incentives, right? And we had incentivized people to run for at least 100 milliseconds. And so they did. They changed their behavior accordingly. Now we're incentivizing you to produce the fastest response possible. and in particular, dialing up the memory and CPU from 2 vCPUs to 6, from 3 gigs to 10 gigs, you can really start bringing some of those times down. And the Alex Castlebone's power tuning tool becomes more important than ever in terms of determining what's more important, pure cost or latency and speed of completion for your customers.
James, can you throw a link into the power tuning? That or one of y'all, that'd be really cool, because I think that's a great call out. It was interesting, and I think Jeremy Daly put this up here. If you think, let's go back to our 10,000 requests at one Lambda function each, so one invocation each, versus 10,000 in one Lambda function at 20 per 1 million requests. I mean, that adds up pretty quick. All right. So after the free tier, obviously you get your first million free, but it adds up pretty quick. So things to think about. Definitely. Thank you, James. James is awesome.
Yep.
So
there we go.
All right.
And the tool is updated to support per millisecond billing and options up to 10 gigabytes of RAM and associated 6 vCPUs. I know you hid this on purpose, but I want to show it again.
I don't think I did. What?
It's the voice of the customer.
Oh,
you did it again. You did it again.
I didn't actually. That last time was actually.
Did it again. Yeah. Makes a huge difference when using Go or Rust. Listen, I'm just giving Eric a hard time here, but you may want to explore those if you hadn't before.
but it's really true.
But not. No, you can get some. Well, this is really important when you think about, like, Go is really well suited to dispatching things and doing them concurrently and handling batches of records like that as well, and taking advantage of all 6 vCPUs in a hyper-threaded model. Similarly, Scala, the parallelism there as well, is suited for taking advantage of that. So if you're into these bigger batch sizes, you may want to consider how runtimes can be different in how they handle multi-threading now. It might not have been such a big impact at 1 gig of RAM with 1 vCPU, but it's going to be a very big impact at 10 gigs of RAM and 6 vCPUs if you have an embarrassingly parallel problem that you're solving, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm going to call out this.
There isn't that Go is the right answer. It's always use the right tool for the job.
Yeah, and that is a good point. I'm also going to call out James Beswick has done a lot of work around optimizing, looking at how to optimize as well. So it's a great blog here. But yeah, right tool for our job. I absolutely agree. And I'll have you know that I've been working on some Go stuff. So there it is. It's out in the wild. It's I've been upping my Python and Go game. Those are my choices. So hey, we're about 3 minutes from out of time. Yeah. Where we at here? What's next?
I want to show this, and then we'll move on with our slides. Have we talked about concurrency yet or not? We have not, and we will not today, but that may come up in one of the remaining sessions. We have 3 more sessions during re:Invent. No, it's just too big of a topic.
Yeah, exactly.
That function series that we talked about before talks about parallelism and concurrency and how you can, like, where you should implement that, whether it's parallel invocations of workflows, parallelism in the map state inside a workflow, or function native concurrency. Check it out. We'll talk about that in a future episode. Since we have 2 minutes left, and I always try to be punctual.
Yes.
A reminder that if you go to serverlessland.com right here, we have featured sessions for re:Invent for the next couple of weeks that we recommend you take a look at from the serverless track.
Oh, sorry, that made me chuckle. Thank you, Ben Britz. I appreciate that.
Good. No, it has it's a tool, right? There are things that you will give up, which again is why I say it's not always the right answer, but if it's the right answer, use it. These are some highlighted week 2 sessions that you'll see here. I of course want to draw your attention to my bosses session on the 9th of December. No, building revolutionary serverless applications.
That's right. Yeah.
It's going to be a very good session. So you'll want to make time to check that out.
He didn't tell us to say that.
Security section at the bottom. But serverless lamp stack there, huge, right? PHP.
Yeah, Ben's done some
innovating. Ben is innovating there.
Yeah, Ben's done some killer work around this. I really encourage you to take a look at this as well. PHP is a big one, and a lot of cool stuff.
Oops, didn't want to show that one. Hey, literally show up with no time left. These are recorded, will be available immediately after, both on the YouTube channel and on Twitch.
Yep.
So if you're watching on Twitch, you get the running commentary, which is always fun. Recommend.
That's right. That's right. It'll be on YouTube about as long as it takes me to add it to the playlist. So it'd be instantly available. So the next one's happening.
yeah, the next one's on Tuesday the 8th. Some times there for you, depending on where you're coming from. But that's Tuesday, December 8th and Thursday, December 10th. And then I will be back here for the final session on Wednesday, December 16th. All right.
That's right.
Same time as this.
And this is, and all the DAs are taking turns doing this. So you'll get to see different folks and hear different opinions and ideas. So lots of fun doing these for everybody who's joined us. We really appreciate it. Having a great, these are fun. And Rob really did the lion's share of this one. I appreciate it, Rob. You killed it. I appreciate that. A lot of great information. So looking forward to the next one on December 8th. And Rob, I'll let you do your goodbyes first.
Yeah, let's just wrap it here. Let's see what other slides we have. Maybe we have some. Yeah, don't forget to check out the reInvent 2020 section of Serverless Land. You will find everything we've mentioned on Serverless Land. App 2025, the step function series, Eric's sessions with Sam, happy little APIs. All of that is right there. That's your source for AWS serverless content.
That's right. We're also posting these videos to Serverless Land as well. So yeah, on time. Good job. All right.
On time.
All right, with that.
Thank you all for joining us. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I'm EDJ Geek. That's RTS Rob. Reach out to us. Have a good one.
Bye, everybody.